Hey, think you know which way it's going to go? Make your bet at Sports Interaction. Whatever your sport, Sports Interaction has you covered pregame. Live betting on all major sports and, of course, prop bets. Who doesn't love those? Want to bet? Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. 19 plus. Please play responsibly.
Welcome to Nailing the Apex. I'm Tim Rainey. Joining me today to go over the Bahrain Grand Prix, staff writer for Formula One, Samarth Kanal. Samarth, how are you, dude? This is the second time I've tried to do this recording, by the way.
I'm good, man. We were just having a post-Bahrain giggle. That's what happened. I think F1 turns everyone a bit loopy.
Oh, man.
It's early for you, though, anyway, so, I don't blame you.
Yeah. So you were down at testing, preseason testing. So how was it? I wanted to go this year, but yeah, I never got the opportunity. How did you enjoy it?
Well, it's so funny about testing. So many people complain that it's boring. And, yeah, but it is boring. I mean, it's not like you go and watch, like, a football team train, or a soccer team, as one would say. You don't go watch them train and then go, oh, well, this is really dull. They're just running around in circles. So, I mean, it's the same thing, isn't it? That is literally it. If you haven't been to F1 testing, if you haven't paid attention to it, it is 8 hours of cars just going around. And that's fine. And that was literally it.
You also get, like, a little bit more access, though, too. I mean, I did... So when I went... So I did 2017, went to testing in Spain, and, like, we got really great access there. I don't know what it was like in Bahrain, but I know when we went to Spain, it was great. Like, we had a ton of access.
Spain was really cool. I must have been there as well, actually. Was that when Alonso lost... Wait, was he there?
No, he was... So this was Stroll's first year at Williams. That's when that was. Well, Alonso was still in Formula One. He was still with...
Was he at McLaren?
Yes.
Oh,
he was still there that year.
That vividly, yeah. That was when everything was kind of... The wheels were coming off.
I think... Oh, yeah. I think... When did he have... Because he did... Yeah, because Alonso did have something happen to him in testing. It was years before that, though. I think it was like 2015 or something. He had like a crash or something in and around turn 2-3 area or something like that. It's weird.
It was the final corner. He's had a couple. It was the final corner. His wheel fell off. It was McLaren.
Oh, yeah.
And me and my mate, my colleague at the time, was standing on top of the garage, looking down. He was a photographer, and he's got, you know what photographers are like, totally different breed to us. And he noticed Alonso holding the wheel nut, and took a photo of it, and literally zoomed in, like, right on top of Alonso. And then in the press conference later, Alonso was like, I know one of you took a picture of that. I don't know how. And I was like, that guy is good. Fair play.
Speaking of Fernando Alonso, finishing third in the Bahrain Grand Prix on Sunday. I mean, did you see that? I mean, obviously, like, Leclerc going out with what is believed to be a power unit issue. Did you see this one coming? Because, the car looked good in testing. I mean, they looked great in qualifying, but I wasn't too sure what they were going to be like on their race pace. Like, I knew they had good long-run pace, but just wasn't too sure if they could at least battle with a Ferrari.
Yeah, and to see Sainz struggling at the end there was just... I mean, is it a degradation problem? I know Bahrain's a high-deg circuit, so maybe that's why Sainz was struggling at the end. But Alonso genuinely looks second fastest on pace, no doubt anymore. And at the start of the season, I did not see that coming. I would have put Aston Martin fifth, and even that's a big jump in Formula One. Do you remember a team coming from seventh to second fastest? Leclerc was second fastest before the engine issue. That's weird, though. They replaced a couple of his engine components before the race, and then it still went wrong. So let's find out if something comes from that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, just to stick with Alonso, then we can jump to Ferrari, because I just think, Alonso. I think Alonso is it's a big story, but it's like I always found that, like, whenever Fernando is doing well, I mean, that's good for Formula One.
I mean, we've been waiting for it for years, right? Qatar 2021 was his last, and it was so good to see him on the podium there. And then finally, he's made a career move that's actually worked out. I mean, no offense to him, but I think one could say that Fernando Alonso has not had the best career moves. It's not quite Damon Hill to arrows, but he's had some shockers. So
Damon Hill to arrows. You actually went there, eh?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Well, it's early for you. I've been up for hours.
Yeah. That's true. Some interesting things with the Aston Martin, though. I mean, I think one of the things that looks really good for them is obviously, like you had said, with the Ferrari, is not too good for them is tire deg. And, if you look at the way they were in races last season, I mean, Aston Martin was always pretty handy when it came to the races last season. But, I mean, obviously it was once they got into, qualifying and all of that they were further into the back. But now, I mean, the step that they've taken, I mean, they were, this time last year, I believe it was around, they were 17th, 19th, I think, qualifying. And that was about they were just over 2.2 seconds off of pole last year. And now, all of a sudden, they're around 0.6. I mean, that's like you're saying, to go from 7th fastest team in the constructor standings and now all the way up to now second, I guess. That's a massive jump. You have to wonder how much Dan Fallows and Eric Blandon and all of their knowledge they've brought over from their respective teams of their old respective teams and Red Bull and Mercedes. What do you think? I mean, I've never seen a turnaround, like you had said, that happened that fast for a race team. I mean, the job that those two guys, that whole team has done is incredible.
Christian Horner was, I think all of the Red Bull guys have been quite pointed in saying, and they've been pretty open about it, in saying that Aston Martin has taken bits from the Red Bull. But let's not forget, this is Formula One. Literally every car has taken other bits from every other car. I mean, when the double diffuser came in, it spawned on every other car, right? So they are saying that. But the Aston looks like a funny car in some ways. I've not seen side pods like that. It has, I mean, if you can look it up, there's like little cuts in the side pod. It's a really odd car. But what you said, they have made amazing technical hires. It's clear that Dan Fallows is a seriously good, technician. And Adrian Newey built a team at Red Bull that I think other people have been looking at for a while.
I think I read a quote somewhere that Helmut Marko had spoken to the German media just before the start of the race, and I'm paraphrasing this. It said something similar to it looks like Dan didn't forget what he had learned at Red Bull or something like that.
In the post-race press conference, Sergio Perez said it's good to see 3 Red Bull drivers on the podium. I mean, it's just, they're not even hiding. It's so cheeky, man. But I love it. I mean, Formula One's about innovation, and to be honest, you should copy the best, right?
Absolutely.
But I'm not saying they have. I mean, I think the car looks quite unique. I think they've taken good bits from a lot of people. The other interesting thing was Alonso in the press conference actually was like, this is the only team that wants to win.
Yeah.
He was so bullish about that.
Yeah.
And I think, fair play. Aston Martin have picked a strategy that's given them massive gains. Why hasn't every other team done that?
Yeah, it was interesting to hear Fernando also, having some, cautious optimism. I mean, for him, I remember paraphrasing again, he's really curious to go to other circuits, especially Jeddah and then obviously Australia, and to see if they're going to be as strong over the next 2 races, and that should give them a better outlook on what 2023 is going to look for them. I mean, I think with a track like Bahrain, I don't know, Samarth, you have to, if you're going to be competitive there, I think you're going to have to be competitive everywhere else. I mean, given the track surface is different with all of these other tracks that they're going to go to, but in Bahrain's kind of that outlier where the surface is actually really rough, still think they're going to be quick when they go to other places.
Well, yeah, I mean, Jeddah is a lower deck circuit,
it is, yeah.
They should theoretically enjoy that a bit more. But then it's funny, maybe Ferrari will too, because it did look like Sainz really dropped off there. So are we going to see a closer field in Jeddah? I really do hope so. For Aston Martin, it looks, as you said just now, actually, if you're good in Bahrain, that's an all-rounder circuit, right? Big, long straight, horrible sector 2. It's horrible. I'm saying turn 10 is a tricky circuit. Yeah. How did Alonso pull that off, by the way? Just one of the passes. It's such a good overtake.
It was interesting to hear, to your point there, it's interesting to hear him talk about that because, the he was just comparing the Aston Martin to, the Ferrari during that press conference, and he did make mention that Ferrari actually is still really fast in a straight line, and he feels that they aren't as fast in a straight line, but in some of the corners is where he was gaining all of the advantage, and that's what allowed him to make some of the overtakes that he did, which were impressive nonetheless. And the radio comments as well were pretty good, right?
I've never seen him so happy. Well, I have, but not for a while. And it was weird because you could see in turn 4 when he was coming up to Sainz, so that was after he passed Hamilton, he almost rear-ended Sainz at one point because he had such a good getaway from turn 4, which is a tough corner to actually have a good getaway on because the apex, it just opens up so much after the apex. You want to get on the throttle, but you can't stamp on the throttle because you'll spin and go down the hill. Alonso did a great job there, and that Aston Martin seemed on rails at the end of the race. It really was quick.
Mike Crack had said to us that there's a little bit of, they're trying to be cautiously optimistic as much as they can, trying to keep expectations in check. It was interesting to hear from him after the race of just how much he was trying to just say, look, we're not sure where we're at. We don't know where we're going to be in the next few races. Let's just keep our head on the ground, keep working hard, and we'll see what happens. I mean, the team's not being very bullish about all of this, are they?
I think it's a dangerous game, isn't it? I mean, that's why no one in testing toots their horn too much.
Yeah.
And as you said, we'll get a better idea. Maybe Jeddah, Australia, we'll start to see the real Aston Martin come out, and we'll see the real Red Bull come out.
Yeah, good point. Ferrari, kind of wanted to jumping around a bit, but for Ferrari, I mean, coming into the start of this, it sounded like they had solved a lot of the reliability PU issues that plagued them last season, but it looks as though there is another PU issue for Charles Leclerc in the first race of the season. I mean, not really getting off to a great start. And you had mentioned off the top there just how they did have to replace some components on the car. Like, I got that email from the FIA with all the component changes, and I was just like, why?
Already?
Yeah, this is weird.
You only get 2 of each of those, right? So energy store, and the other one was control electronics. So they've already taken 1. So that's close to a penalty already. It seems. Hopefully Leclerc doesn't need another one, right? It's painful. But at this stage, things do go wrong. I mean, if we look back to last year, Red Bull had a double DNF, and they fixed it so quickly. Max Verstappen did have another DNF in a couple of races, but I don't think that was engine-related. So things can turn around, and I think Ferrari have to have the faith that things will turn around. We were talking about the strategy before the race as well, by the way, and I was just looking back, and I was wondering if there was a way that they could have put more pressure on, perhaps held Aston off, and they didn't. And I think with Perez and Verstappen managed to go on softs, that was their pay. That was the killer. Ferrari could not respond to that.
Yeah, and it was it's interesting just trying for Ferrari to keep a set of new softs, right? Not to use that last set for Q3 and choosing to hold on to a set. I mean, it didn't really do them any good. It gave. I mean, granted, Leclerc had a great start, but he just wasn't able to even hold on to P2. I mean, the tire dag, I think, on the Ferrari and for some of the other teams as well, it is quite high. The Red Bull just seems so strong. It's interesting. It's kind of like they started off building a car that, and this is, if we go back to last season, it's like Red Bull started off building a car that was built for the race, in terms of tire degradation, because Ferrari really struggled with that last season as well. I remember, I don't know if you were in Miami or not, but I remember Miami, that was huge for Charles Leclerc. His tires just dropped off a cliff, and Max was able to catch him no problem and eventually get by. And then obviously Ferrari had their other strategical issues as well on top of that. But that being said, I mean, it's just interesting to see how teams build these cars, because I mean, Ferrari still has, it looks anyways, like they still have some of that long run high tire deg issue. And you have to wonder if is this a part of, and I don't know what you think about this, like if this is a part of their car philosophy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you carry over some characteristics that are like intrinsic in the DNA of a car. And they have carried over last year's philosophy. Again, it's hard because Bahrain is such a high tire deg track. That is worrying, though, to see Sainz drop off in pace. Obviously, we didn't really get to see what Leclerc could have managed. I think he was stone cold P3, though. His pace was good. I haven't really looked and seen if Alonso could have caught him up. But Alonso made light work of Sainz, and that's worrying. Again, let's hope for maybe Jeddah will be, and they have great straight line speed. Jeddah's going to suit them. You know, that's a fast track.
Yeah, big time. Let's move on. Talk about Max. I mean, obviously coming away with his 36th career Grand Prix win. He actually wasn't that happy with the car over one lap.
What a weird day that was, where we just saw all that testing promise. It didn't go away, but there was like a glimpse that, whoa, there's something wrong at Red Bull. Like the alarm bells were ringing and everyone was like, this isn't the same Red Bull we've seen. Now, I don't know why that is. And I'm sure they're going to be looking into that. That was so weird. And it looked like Alonso was going to pip him. He only called off at fifth in the end as well, which is surprising. But, you know, how Red Bull managed to just keep... They were like on the limit there. It looked like someone was going to go wrong there. But, yeah, they look like the real deal this year. You know?
It's crazy, the gap. I mean, with Max broke the DRS after one lap.
Yeah, he was like 4 seconds ahead in 5 laps. It was crazy, right? I mean, In last year, I mean, it took, I would say, probably would be about 2, maybe 3 laps for a leader. Let's just say we'll use Max towards the back half of the season because he pretty much, ran the table. Took him at least a few laps to break the DRS, and now it's just he had it done in 1 lap, and that's over like that's with like a Ferrari chasing with arguably better tires and then also arguably better straight line speed. I mean, yeah, I'm wondering if part of that was because of the start though, that Perez, he didn't stall, but he had a bit of a slow crawl away from the line, and there was a bit of a 3-way duel going into turn 1 there. And I'm just wondering if that allowed Verstappen to just get away really clean. I mean, you could probably in 1 lap just get a 1 second advantage if 3 cars behind you are fighting. So it looked like Perez's start actually helped Verstappen get away. But for him to break that DRS and have no threat for the rest of the race, there was a moment in the race where when Leclerc pulled off, there was a virtual safety car and Red Bull's pit crew came out. I was like, that's game over. Yeah. But they didn't get fastest lap, which was weird. So not maximum points. I'm sure they're going to be really annoyed about
that. That honor went to Zhou Guan Yu coming away with the fastest lap of the race, which is a little bit surprising. But I guess you empty the tanks, race mode on.
He pitted at the penultimate lap, stole that point away from Red Bull. I'm sure they're going to be furious about it. Yeah.
The gap between Sergio Perez finished the second, but the gap for qualifying actually between those two was surprisingly a lot closer than what I thought. It was less than a tenth of a second, if I can recall correctly, delta between Verstappen and Perez during qualifying. Are you surprised by that? I mean, because obviously, if we take a look at some of the pressure that's on Sergio coming into this season, I mean, he's got Daniel Ricciardo breathing down his neck. Obviously, he wants get back into a race car at some point, we think. And for Sergio, struggled mightily through some parts of last season, and then the development of that RB18 really started to go away from him and started to favor, obviously, Max more. But coming into this season, I don't know how you see this, but I kind of look at this like this is a car that's been built for Max, but Sergio actually has done pretty well here.
Yeah, he said so. Post race, he said he was so much more confident, so much happier with the RB19. Last year, you're right. I mean, the RB18 got away from him, I think. I don't think it's completely designed around Max, I would say. I mean, it was weird in the preseason testing. Max said, "I don't have a driving style. I just adapt to the car," which was interesting to hear. Now I don't know if it's completely true, if that's just him trying to annoy Perez a little bit, but it looks like both of them have had a good hand on development. It looks like a car that's also quite malleable, and they can just use it wherever. It's plug and play, which is really terrifying to their rivals. And it looks like Perez is just so much happier. Let's see how that goes, though.
Moving on to Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton finishing 5th, George Russell 7th. You had Lance Stroll splitting the two of them. For Mercedes, I mean, after Saturday, Total Wolff pretty much pulling the plug on this one, eh?
It's weird, yeah. Even their social media is in mourning mode. Have you seen, like, there's just full stop, no exclamation marks, no smiling emojis. They genuinely seem annoyed. It's bad down there. It's weird to see a team that has won so many championships fall. But, in F1, dynasties always topple and someone else always comes in. I wonder if they can turn it around.
It would take a lot, right? Like, you have to think about the car design itself. I mean, you're literally talking about changing full car philosophy, and I'm not too sure how that that can't be done quickly, right? It just can't. Like, they've tried to go in a direction that wasn't that similar to what everybody else was doing. So Red Bull, Aston Martin, Ferrari's is more of a, I guess their aero philosophy is a little bit different, where they kind of run, they kind of run more of a, I want to say an in-wash almost aero philosophy. But that being said, it's shocking to see just how far off the pace they still are. It's been over a year with this car, and they're still essentially, well, performance-wise, it appears they're still in the same spot, Samarth.
Yeah, it's true. Did we mention Stroll, by the way? I just want to go back to him. Heroic,
we'll get there.
Right?
Okay, sure. You can mention Stroll now if you want.
The only reason I know you love that, but the reason I'm saying that is that the Mercedes was split by Stroll there. So to have Russell struggle for pace against an Aston Martin was just weird, plain weird. At times, Russell looked really fast in the first stint. I thought he looked faster than Hamilton, and then he just fell back and back and back. It was really weird to see. There must be a reason Mercedes are chasing that philosophy, though, right? I mean, if you're committing this hard, you've seen something in the wind tunnel or on CFD or whatever to say, no, we should continue with this, not change the concept. They are bringing new side pods to the car sometime soon, they say. But I wonder if that really changes that much, what that means.
Because, they can't necessarily just go and copy what everybody else is doing. Like I previously had mentioned with Red Bull and Ferrari and Aston Martin. Yeah. Because that would just require a whole sort of almost rebuild, I think. It would kind of have to, because you're talking about aero, and with aero, it starts with your front wing, and then it kind of works its way back throughout the race car itself. So you're having to redesign or rebuild an entire race car, and it doesn't make sense, because they have to, I'm assuming they're going to have to move forward with what they've got now, not unless they've been building, something else back at the factory that they just haven't really revealed just yet.
It would have to be really good for them to be this quiet about it and this coy. But they are going to change the car. I wonder how different it's going to be. And you can't, and you're right, the budget cap is 135 million or something. You cannot build a whole new car during a season. If they manage it, fair play to them. I'd love to see them try. Yeah.
Because you remember when they showed up to Barcelona for preseason testing. They had one car philosophy then, and then by the time we got to Bahrain, which was I think it was like a week later, or there was a week in between, and then we had Bahrain testing last season, and then they pulled the covers off of that one, and then that's where the zero side pod, design
everyone was shocked
came
by
into
it.
play.
And Red Bull also changed as well.
Yes.
That year, yeah. See.
And that's why I'm curious to know if that is possible, if that big of a change is possible, or if it just is just too far gone them now. It's like it's gone. Like it's gone. It's not coming back. And this is something they're going to have to chip away at through the entire season.
It's definitely possible. It's definitely possible. Mike Elliott said that it will look different. He said very different, and then corrected himself and said no, it'll look different. And I can't wait to see it. But the problem is, as you said, you change one part, you got to change all the other parts sometimes. So, but they are an amazing team.
Oh yeah. I mean, obviously, Mercedes is an incredible team, and they can pretty much do anything if they put their minds to it. But I mean, I wonder, how much pressure do you think Mike Elliott's under?
I wonder what the mood in the camp's like. Toto Wolff was furious. I mean, I've seen him like that. We've all seen him like that. But God, I would not want to be there right now. But still, championship winning team. They've got to be able to do something.
So Lance coming home 6th, obviously. So got some broken bones, falling off his bike. So I think this is pretty remarkable. I don't. I still think his pole position in Turkey was pretty spectacular, but I would put this up there with all the other performances that he's had in Formula One in terms of success. So podiums and pole position, front row start as well. What do you think? What do you think about that? Because obviously I'm from Canada, so but what do you think?
Are you saying your Canadian bias is going to take over and you're going to be like, that's better than the podium? I think it was fantastic. It was heroic. He must have been in so much pain. And he did say after the race, it was just pain. Incredible stuff. Really incredible. And yeah, I think he deserves a lot more credit than he gets sometimes. I think being the son of a billionaire, you lose some sympathy, right? Here, he's done an amazing job. And could he have got P4, maybe? P5? Yeah, maybe on a different day. But I can't imagine how much pain he went through there. Really horrible.
Yeah, I wonder how much the VSC affected him, and if he may have been able to chase down Hamilton if it hadn't been for that. Because I think he was lapping faster than Lewis towards the end, but it was only by about 3 to 4 tenths. So I'm just thinking, if he had maybe 3 or 4 more laps, he most likely would have gotten Lewis. And obviously that's due to the driving, but also the way that the car uses the tire and the tire dag. It's really good. It's really good like that. But the driver also has to manage all of that at the same time. Yeah, he said he had problems with turning in to the hairpin in particular, just not having the confidence to do it simply because of all the pain that he was having, and he was having even more when trying to crank the steering lock on to get into the hairpin. And he did make mention that the last 20 laps were pretty painful, and he was just just hanging on. I think he'll probably start to feel better. I mean, it looks like, in hearing from him every day, it's just kind of like it's sounding like every day is kind of he's feeling better, and he'll keep feeling better. And so by the time I think they get to Saudi Arabia, he's not going to be 100%. Obviously, he'll still feel like crap, but I think he'll start feeling better than what he did during the weekend. But yeah, pretty impressive for him to get into the car. Hearing from some of the team personnel, he's in a lot of pain, a lot. So
I mean, it seems awful, yeah. But hey, well done,
man. Quickly round this out. Valtteri coming home 8th. Pretty remarkable for Alfa Romeo. I actually didn't see this one coming, and I didn't think they were going to be this competitive straight off the hop.
Yeah, they look good. They've done some good work over the winter. He was really fast, and you know what, Bottas is solid, and it looks like he's enjoying himself. And I love this new Bottas 3.0. It's just so good. The mullet, the mustache. Oh, what a guy! And to bring it home 8th, great.
Pierre Gasly in the Alpine. I mean, obviously he didn't do very well with qualifying. Starting dead last, but got points for his first drive with Alpine. So
11 places up. I mean, that's a great start, right? I mean, can't say no to that. I think he was pretty much on trouble there. He looked good. I wonder about Alpine though. I mean, they haven't really shown much. They've been anonymous.
Yeah.
So let's see.
That's an interesting point that you make, because I thought that Alpine was kind of going to be that 4th best team. I thought they were going to pick up right where they left off last season, where it was Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, Alpine, McLaren. I really thought McLaren. I mean, that's another story. But Alpine, I didn't expect them. I expected them to be more competitive than what they were this weekend. In all honesty, like it looked like both drivers just struggling to find balance with the car, and struggling just to put it together. Like it looked like it was difficult to piece together a full push lap for qualifying. And then obviously, I mean, Ocon gets hit with like 100 seconds of penalties. Like
unbelievable,
right?
That must be one of the worst weekends you could have. I mean, I saw in the NASCAR, I think Noah Gragson had like a 5-second penalty a penalty added on for speeding in the pit lane while serving another penalty. So it does happen. But in Formula One, there's like a pit limiter. You have all these things. Teething issues, right? I mean, that's got to be it. He's just a bit rusty, a bit out of practice. Oh, that was painful. And I thought it was a mistake. I thought like the TV had just like shown it again. I was like, oh no, it's fine. He's already had that penalty, and it turned out to be like 20 seconds.
And then we'll finish off with Alex Albon. I mean, Williams. It's actually pretty surprising. Logan Sargent actually doing very well in his first Grand Prix as well. Actually, you can touch on him in a minute because I did hear from him. But that being said, with Alex, I mean, pretty remarkable stuff from him. And again, for qualifying, Samarth, just really, he's fast, man. Like, he's a fast driver. He's
brilliant. And to take that point, Williams have made some good moves over the winter. I think they've done really well. James Vowles is a solid team principal to have as well, so it's nice to see them make that change. And really good opening race for them. If you want to touch on Sargent right now, I will, because that is a good debut. 12th, right? That's solid. Really good.
Interesting to note, James Vowles, you had mentioned there. I mean, he's only been at the team, I think his first day, I believe, was February 20th. So he's only been there for just a few weeks. So it was interesting to hear from Alex and how he had said that, James, him being there has been great. He's helped a lot on certain things, but like he's not the full reason why the car is the way it is, right now. And I think a little bit of credit has to go to Dave Robson, because he's the one who had to kind of like stick everything out as soon as, Yost got let go and FX as well. Dave had to kind of take charge of like everything, and you have to give them credit. Like, car looks good. I mean, it's not great, but I mean, it's sure a hell of a lot better than last season's car.
Yeah, I mean, that's the main thing. It's all relative, right? It depends how much of a... I think, was it Albon who said, everyone's giving Aston Martin credit, but look at us. We've jumped up as well. And that's fair. It's hard to jump off from the bottom.
Yep.
In some ways, it's even harder because you might have had last year, you might have an absolute mare of a car, and you've had to completely change the philosophy and do loads of work. They've done a great job. I hope it continues. I really do. It's Williams.
Still have their straight line speed. So last season last season that was one of their strengths, especially in the races. They're very hard to pass in a lot of the races. So once they were, it was all about that qualifying, just making sure that the driver was able to wring the car's neck as best as possible and put them into a position where they may be able to capture a point or a top position like 12th or 13th. But I mean, the car looks like it'll be handy when they get to places that have big straight line speed. I'm interested to see what the upgrades look like for this thing and how big that's going to be. I mean, James Vowles did say, I think he might have said it on Saturday. I can't really remember, paraphrasing, obviously, that he wasn't going to really. He would if he had to not spend so much money on this year's car and focus more on spending more money internally and then also on the 2024 car as well, which would be a smart move. I mean, it sounds like the Williams factory could use a bit of refurbishing.
Yeah, maybe a bit. But it's a tough call to make, right? Like you don't. If you give up the season, you're giving up prize money. You're giving up a lot, really, and you're always there to fight. Like,
yeah.
But they are still in a transitional phase. Let's not forget that. I mean, they've got work to do.
Yeah, and they still don't have full sponsorship on the car either. Like, still have a lot of space to use up. Yeah.
I hope we see a good old Golf livery this season, though. Wouldn't you love to see like the blue and orange? It'd be so good.
Like the McLaren one at Monaco a couple years ago.
That's the standard bearer now. That's
right?
That's the benchmark.
Do you want to? Yeah, speaking about McLaren, we'll just go real quick on this because that was horrible weekend for them. That was, I can't believe that. Lando Norris coming home 17th.
6 times. Yeah.
Oh, man.
6 pit stops. That's brutal. And Piastri, electrical issue, I think. I mean, that's a horrible debut as debuts go. You want to do the race distance. You want to get those laps in. It's really crucial for a rookie. So to see him not finish is painful. I think it's going to be a painful year.
Yeah.
I do, yeah. I was shocked by the preseason testing pace.
And, just for them just to admit, coming out before or even preseason started, just being like, this is going to be a tough year, or the beginning of it is going to be difficult. Like, I can't believe just how difficult it's been. Like, I didn't expect them to be this slow. I didn't expect it to be this bad for them. I really didn't.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, there were inklings that they'd be 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 on pace going into Bahrain, and yeah, they came away without points. It's really painful. But then again, we've seen teams go to Bahrain, come away with no points, and then the next few races they're amazing. Now, I don't think McLaren are going to have a turnaround like that so quickly. I think the second half of the season will be kinder to them. But yeah, that was a brutal debut.
Well, sir, really appreciate you taking the time to come on to Nailing the Apex. That's staff writer for Formula One, Samarth Kanal. Samarth, thanks again, man.
You did that without giggling. Thanks, Tim. I really enjoyed that. Thanks, man.
Okay, let's move over. Talk a little bit of IndyCar. Firestone Grand Prix of St. Pete was on this past weekend. Get into this race a little bit more later on in the week, trying to get a certain guest on to go over the entire race with me. But for the time being, I'll quickly skim through it. I didn't get to see the full race in its entirety. I saw bits and pieces because I was doing stuff with TSN and Sports Center, and then also I had the IndyCar race on beside me at the same time. But Marcus Ericsson coming away with the win, qualified 4th. I mean, that's a big win for Marcus. Obviously, Indy 500 winner as well. He's won IndyCar races before at the same time, but I think one of the things with Marcus is that not a lot of people feel he either deserves a win or is good enough to win. And if we take a look at last season, he was great. I mean, Marcus was in the mix for the championship up until the last race. And so to see him start the season off with a victory is, I think, in my opinion, is awesome. That's IndyCar racing, right? We never know what's going to happen at all at any given time. He only led for 4 laps, but those are the 4 laps that counted. So Marcus Ericsson is now championship leader, and these are things that he probably also learns from Scott Dixon as well, as being the teammate of one of the greatest IndyCar drivers of all time. And Scott Dixon, you're probably going to learn a lot. Patricio O'Ward finishing 2nd. He had that plenum event, they called it, during the restart there. And Patricio, obviously not entirely happy with what all went down with that. He did explain to us following the race that he has had these plenum events before in the past. And Scott Dixon, who finished third, he too as well also has suffered from them in the past as well. You never know when they're going to happen, and they just sort of come up. Now, I'm not an engine expert in sort of this realm. I believe it has something to do with how much boost is allowed to be generated and sent through the intake plenum and into the combustion chambers as well. So to have a fire of some kind happen within there is actually quite strange. But hey, good for Arrow McLaren to start the season off, finishing on the podium. This is great for the team. It's good for Patricio O'Ward as well. Scott Dixon coming home third. It's Scott Dixon, man. Like, the guy's gonna be okay. And sure enough, he's right in the mix like always. He qualified ninth. I mean, it just shows you, for Scott Dixon to qualify ninth, just how tight this IndyCar field actually is. It's remarkable. I mean, listening to IndyCar radio on Saturday, I mean, teams were within hundredths of a second. Drivers were within hundredths of a second of each other during quali. I mean, that just shows the level of competitiveness within IndyCar. It's actually really impressive. Alexander Rossi, who qualified 12th, finishing 4th. I mean, that's a good finish for Alex on a new team. He's got to learn new systems and the way things go, and it's a big transition for him to leave Andretti Autosport and to come over to Arrow McLaren. And in there, you've got Canadian Gavin Ward running the show, and that's a good finish for that team, having Pato and Alex in the top 5. Callum Ilott qualified 22nd. He started off the weekend pretty rough. I mean, he made no bones about it when we heard from him on both Friday and Saturday. It was a tough weekend for him, and for Callum to just keep his nose out of trouble because of all of the massive crashes that were happening in and around him, to come home and finish 5th. I mean, that's a great result for Juncos. It's a great result for Callum as well, and same goes for Graham Rahal, who again, Graham really struggled with the brakes throughout the weekend. You know, the brake, from my understanding, it's the brake pad that is new to IndyCar for this season. Some of the teams are having issues with it. So for Graham, swapping out those brake pads late in the weekend kind of helped turn things around for him. He was a little more happy over the weekend because of it. I know practice was a bit of a struggle for Graham. First practice session was, and he wasn't too happy about it, but finishing 6th for Rahal. Letterman Lanigan Racing is pretty incredible. As for Will Power, who qualified 10th, finished 7th. I mean, again, right, Will Power, defending champion. You just need to kind of you just need to stick it out, right? That's the thing with IndyCar and trying to win a championship. You just need to stick it out. Same with Alex Palou coming home 8th. And then Christian Lundgaard coming home 9th, qualified 11th. And David Malukas. What more can you say about David? He was a rookie, obviously, last season, but has done a remarkable job down at that team. And there's going to be only great things for him in the future. Really impressed with what David's been able to do. That pretty much does it for IndyCar for now. Like I said, I will be back later this week to go over more of the IndyCar race from St. Pete, if I can get the guests that I want to come on. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I'll run through Grid Rival real quickly because obviously we have the SDPN official Grid Rival pool for 2023. I'll just run through the top 10. The thing is that some of these teams are actually tied. So yeah, we'll just have to go through it. We'll see what happens. But Poop Lord 2022 is leading the way. GP is in second. Astro Race 47th. Set 47 is in third. John P is in fourth. Jay Smitty is in fifth. Mr. Nipsley? I don't even know some of your guys' names are. These are crazy. Is in third. JRSP, or sorry, Mr. Nipsley is in, what's this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th. JRSP is in 7th. Formula Ina is in 8th. Big Deal 13 is in 9th, and Matt's 18 is in 10th. Hall in the Mail is down in 159th. Hey, I had a pretty solid team. I thought they were going to get me more points than what they had. Who I've got? I got Verstappen, Gasly, Alonso, Hulkenberg, got Zhou, and the manufacturer is Aston Martin. For my star driver, I had Fernando Alonso, and it appears he captured about 344 points. So big day for Fernando. Okay, let's head on over to Twitter and take some of your questions. Did put out a tweet asking for your questions, and you delivered with quite a few. So I'll do my best to try and get to as many as I can. This is great. We'll start with @Nate in Vegas. Not really a question for a podcast. Okay, we're off to a good start here. But is the race in Austin fun? Thinking of going to my first F1 event there since Vegas will be too expensive. Well, Nate in Vegas. Yes, been to... I've driven on the track before in the past, but to go to Austin for the Grand Prix weekend, it's so much fun. I've been there twice, and I have to recommend it simply because of the race is always great, and everything that happens off track is a load of fun. Plus, COTA does a good job of getting the fans in and out of the circuit. In the past, they used to run school buses with fans, so fans would meet at certain parts of Austin, wherever you were staying. There's more than one, and the buses circulate, and they make stops at different places. They pick you up, they take you all the way out to the track, drop you off, and the buses are always running, so it's great. So if you don't want to stay for the whole day, you can go for the practice and then leave, or go for the qualifying and then leave. You don't have to watch the support series races, which I encourage you to do. Those drivers need support as well, but at the end of the day, yeah, it's pretty good. It's worth your money. I've always had fun going. At T Ludwig Photo. I watched more F1, but I caught the second half of the IndyCar race today. What exactly is a plenum fire? That's a good question because I am no engine expert. I have been trying to hunt down some folks who may have an answer to this. What I've been able to gather so far, plenum fire, or as a journalist had referred to it during our press conference, a plenum event, is essentially has to do with how much. So since these are turbocharged engines that IndyCar runs, it has to do with how much boost is allowed to be generated and then sent through the intake plenum and then into the combustion chambers. So whatever happens in that process, there must have been some sort of a spark or an ignition that had quickly happened. It was interesting because Scott Dixon actually, he told us that he's had it happen to him as well, and it's really, there's nothing you can do to prevent it, and you never know when it's going to happen, and you can't simply just drive straight through it. So you can't just mash the throttle down and keep going. You literally have to come off throttle, wait for the engine to quickly reset, and then get back on it. So, yeah, that's very unfortunate for for how all of that happened to Pato. From Ontario_Momes, am I saying that right? I don't even know. Were the new regulations made to improve racing or stop Mercedes? George Russell is saying the championship is over and Red Bull will win after Bahrain. What happened at Bahrain 2023? Okay, so regulations were made to improve the racing. Yes, not so much to stop Mercedes. It was more to do with getting the cars closer, more following, and then also the cost cap on top of that, and then the CFD wind tunnel testing time, as well as trying to get the field to come closer together. I'm not sure George is right in saying that the season is over and Red Bull has won everything. This season may be over for him and Mercedes, but I don't think it's necessarily over for Ferrari or Aston Martin, who also look quite strong. I mean, Ferrari's qualifying pace was actually reasonably good. It's more along the lines of the racing for them and tire dag. And again, remember, Bahrain is a bit of an outlier in terms of the track. Pavement in Bahrain is very abrasive. So if your car is already not great with tires, chances are you're really going to struggle in Bahrain. But by the time you get to the track in Saudi Arabia, it's a little more forgiving, and then same with Australia as well. So the racing is going to change up. The cars will get a little bit closer together. It'll just be how quickly can these teams get upgrades to the car to close the gap to Red Bull. From Rytech, yes. I'm assuming I'm saying that correctly, but who knows. What was more impressive, Alonso's third or Lance's sixth with his recent injury? That's a good one. I mean, I would say Alonso's third isn't very impressive, simply for the team itself. I mean, for where the team was last season compared to where they are now is massive. That is a massive turnaround from a Formula One team, and I don't ever remember a team making that type of a turnaround. Lance's sixth is very impressive, considering just how much pain he was in and what he had to go through, and to stay focused when you have a tremendous amount of pain in a race car. It's really difficult. From @Speed Racer 430. Was it Bahrain? Does Ferrari have a real problem with the tire window? I think they do. That was supposed to be one of the things that they were working on in the off season. Add in on top of that everything that was going on with their reliability issues that they suffered from last season as well. But yeah, the tire dag, it looked very high for them in Bahrain, and yeah, it could play an issue as we get into the season a little bit deeper. The SF23 didn't look happy. Also, power unit. Well, it looks like Insights. It looks like they have a really strong. Ferrari still has a really strong engine. It looks like they have really good straight line speed. The reliability. Have to see what's going on with with Charles Leclerc's DNF on Sunday. Aston Martin handles on rails, brakes like a boat anchor, went out the side pod. Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll, massive respect. What's the worst injury you drove with, Tim? Question mark. Oh, okay. All right, interesting. So I was in Formula Renault, Birmingham, Alabama. I got food poisoning, and for some reason, this is weird, the food poisoning led to my immune system doing something really weird. I ended up getting like rheumatoid arthritis, so my ankles actually like swelled up, massively swelled up. They had to try and like drain fluid because it was like literally crushing my bones. It was extremely painful. I've never had so much pain in my life, and I had to qualify and then race. The adrenaline, I could barely get my racing boot on. I could barely get my feet into the foot pedals because they were so swollen. I mean, it looked pretty funny, I guess, if you saw it, but I was in so much pain. I had to be carried to the car. I had to be lifted up. I had to be put in the car. I could get out under my own strength. So if there was something that had happened, I was able to get out of the car in the required time. It was, slamming your feet on the pedals. You really got to brake aggressively. Same with throttle. When the G-forces are trying to pull your feet off of the pedals, you have to make sure you're holding your foot down on the pedal, because you come off the accelerator, you lose speed and you lose time. So that was really painful. That was the most pain I've ever been in. But every time I saw the checkered flag, I was in an extreme amount of pain. The adrenaline is the only thing that sort of helped me get through all of it. Painkillers did nothing. Ibuprofen, you name it, took it all, did absolutely nothing. So yes, that was very, very painful. From Pens_City, based on how Lando was driving and how even despite the challenges he was keeping up with Aston Martin, I don't necessarily think so. And Ferrari, do you think that if McLaren or at least Lando are able to avoid any disruptions like those today, they have a possibility of ending in 4th, 5th, or even 6th at the end? Look, it looks bad for McLaren. Okay, I'll tell you that right now. And where they finished on Sunday, I think it's going to be like that for a little bit longer, at least until they get some upgrades to the McLaren, and then we'll see. I mean, the thing with the midfield is that it looks like it's quite competitive. So even though, yes, they're finishing, or they're well off the pace, it doesn't necessarily mean that they won't be back on the pace in about 3 to 4 races time when they start bringing more upgrades to the car. Lance R. Nicholson, after watching Lance Stroll gut it out this weekend, should we start putting some respect next to his name? Yes. With this being Max's, this is from @Mish310, with this being Max's second year not using number 33 technically next season, is it open for anyone to use, or since number 1 is a temporary number, does 33 get saved? Well, this happened like years ago when the drivers had to give their numbers over and choose on which numbers they wanted to run for their sort of F1 sort of careers. Verstappen chose 33. I'm assuming it's going to get saved. I wouldn't see why it wouldn't if that's the number that he has chosen. He is just running number 1 until somebody else comes along and takes the championship away from him and wants to run number 1, then he'll revert back to 33. From Pangborn 1989, why no street sweepers at St. Pete to clean up the marbles during the yellow flags? I'm not too sure. That is actually a great question, and I would like to know that answer as well, because the marble pickup that was on the side of the track for this race weekend was unbelievable. I'm not sure if some of that has to do with the Waiuli tire or what, or the Reds were really just shedding. It was pretty crazy though. From @no_name_account. Okay. Do you think the Aston Martin is fully legal? They are an aggressive bunch. Yes, they are an aggressive bunch. Is it fully legal? I mean, yes, I think so. We would have heard rumblings from the teams if it wasn't. Anyways, thanks very much, everyone, for listening to Nailing the Apex. I'm Tim Haraney. If you want more from me, you can get me on social media @Tim Haraney. And thanks very much, everyone, for listening. We'll talk to you all later.